The prison in El Salvador, where Kilmar Abrego Garcia was sent, the Trump administration says by mistake, is one of the largest maximum security prisons in Latin America. In recent weeks, that prison has become a kind of photo op for members of the Trump administration and his Republican supporters in the U.S. Congress. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem toured the prison in March, posting an Abu Ghraib-style video and photos of herself in front of a crowded cell. This week, Republican Congressman Jason Smith of Missouri posted his own photo from inside the prison in El Salvador. So did Republican Congressman Riley Moore of West Virginia, who shared this photo, double thumbs up, in front of the cells of the prison. Today, another lawmaker arrived in El Salvador, this time a Democrat, and he's there for a very different reason. He is the senior senator from the state where Kilmar Abrego Garcia lived with his family until the Trump administration had him arrested and took him to this foreign prison in a move the administration, again, admitted was what they called an administrative error. Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland landed in El Salvador today with the hope that he might see Mr. Abrego Garcia or be able to talk to him.
I hope to meet with some high-level government officials from El Salvador. As I've said before, the goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
Senator Van Hollen landing in El Salvador today, hoping for a chance to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia in that prison. Senator Van Hollen says the vice president of El Salvador told him he would not be able to do that when he met with him today. Joining us now for the interview is Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland, who joins us from El Salvador. Senator, thank you so much for what you're doing and for being here with us tonight. I know it's been a very long day.
It has, Rachel, but as you said in the intro, I promised Kilmar's family that I would do everything I could to bring him home because, as you said, a court in the United States has determined that he was illegally abducted from the United States and landed in the most notorious prison in El Salvador. So that's why I raised these issues directly with the vice president of El Salvador. The president is not in the country now, so I met with the vice president to talk about these issues and ask for the opportunity to go visit Kilmar.
What's sort of the range of potential outcomes here that you think are possible? What are you hoping to accomplish on this trip? And how did those expectations match up with the experience that you had today meeting with the country's vice president and hearing what you did from him?
Well, my goal is to keep a spotlight on this issue until justice is done, until the 9-0 opinion by the Supreme Court is implemented by the Trump administration, which is ignoring entirely that order that they need to facilitate his return. I asked the folks at the embassy whether they'd been ordered by the administration to do anything to facilitate his return. The answer was no, so they're clearly not in compliance. And I said to the vice president of El Salvador, look, you've got somebody in your worst prison, the prison for terrorists, who the United States court has said has committed no crime. And so I asked him if he had any evidence that Kilmar was a member of MS-13 or had committed any crimes. And he said, no. So I asked him why he was keeping Kilmar in prison here. And his answer was that essentially the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador taxpayer money to keep this person here despite the court orders. So my goal, Rachel, is to make sure that we keep the spotlight on this issue because I think it's unsustainable. It's unsustainable to continue to keep a person who has not been convicted of a crime in the worst prison in El Salvador when the Trump administration admitted itself to a judge that this was a mistake. But instead of fixing the mistake, they fired the Justice Department lawyer who admitted it was a mistake.
I just want to underscore what you just said there, that you were told by the U.S. Embassy in El Salvador that they have received no request from the White House or from the Justice Department, from any other entity in Washington, asking them to take any steps to obtain the release of Mr. Abrego Garcia. Presumably, it's the local U.S. officials at the embassy there who would be the relevant point of contact, the first point of contact for the U.S. government trying to attain that outcome, correct?
Well, that's exactly right. And it is pretty clear that the Trump administration has not lifted a finger to implement that court order. And so I think it's important that the courts know that, and they will know that. And again, denying his family an opportunity to even have a phone call with Kilmar is just a gross violation of basic human rights and human decency. And, I asked the vice president if I came back next week, whether or not I could go visit Kilmar. And the answer was no, he couldn't guarantee that. I said, look, I may be the first member of Congress here, the first senator, but I can assure you more will be coming. And you cannot continue to keep this man locked up in this worst prison in El Salvador, and one of the worst in the hemisphere, when he hasn't committed a crime. And so we're going to keep at this. And I asked the vice president just to let him out the gate, because you may remember at the White House, the president of El Salvador said, well, we can't smuggle Kilmar back into the United States. He said, you don't have to smuggle him back to the United States. We know you can't do that. Just open the prison door. And Attorney General Pam Bondi said the United States would send a plane down here. And if she doesn't, at least he would be free for now in El Salvador as we work to find a way to get him back into the court system and due process in the United States. Again, nothing.
You mentioned that other...
So...
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think this is, of course, about the family and making sure the family gets justice. But it's also, as you say, about the Trump administration trying to deprive individuals in the United States of their liberty without any due process, right? This is like taking away people's freedom. That does not sound like a conservative idea to me. That is something that, of course, authoritarian governments engage in, and it's a very fast road to tyranny if we don't all stand up against it.
You mentioned the possibility, and now it seems like the likelihood, that other members of Congress are going to make their way to El Salvador. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey has expressed interest in going. Congressman Maxwell Frost, the young congressman from Florida, has formally requested a congressional delegation, a CODEL, to El Salvador. Given that a couple of Republican members of Congress who are supporters of what Trump has done using this prison have somehow gotten into the prison and been able to take photo ops there, given that the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, was able to get in and do a photo op there. I wonder what you make of the El Salvadoran government sort of opening the door to allow Trump administration officials and Republican supporters of President Trump in there to make essentially social media content while still denying you the opportunity to get inside.
Well, you're right. That's clearly what's happening. I mean, you have the government of El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, make this deal with the Trump administration. I think it's $15 million that the Trump administration is going to be paying El Salvador to essentially take these folks from the United States who have been denied due process in the case of Kilmar. And again, Republicans seem to be happy to take photo ops at this site and celebrate the fact that the President of the United States is ignoring court orders and that the government of El Salvador is keeping this guy locked up who's committed no crime at all. So I do think, though, as we continue to put the spotlight on this injustice, that they ultimately will have to let him go. I believe that will be the case because I believe people will keep pressing for justice.
Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen joining us live tonight from El Salvador. Sir, thank you again for making time to be here and helping us understand this and explain it to our audience. Please keep us apprised. I know a lot of people are worried about you being there, given what's going on between our government and the government of El Salvador and the kind of language used by their president in talking about this standoff. So please be safe, keep us apprised, and we'll look forward to having you back on soon.
Will do. Thank you, Rachel.